Hey guys, in this video I'll be going over Python for loops. So this will be the continuation of the video series. So in Python, you can have a for loop, except I believe it usually uses the keyword in as well. So you have to say like for something in. For example, you can have like a sequence. A sequence can be like a sequence of numbers or strings, so we'll just do some examples to explain. So here we'll have just a simple example here. So we'll say print. Why does that happen always? Okay, so let me just change my keyboard. Switches over to some other language. So here we'll have print. I will display the numbers 1 through 5. So also in we haven't gone over arrays or lists yet, but this example uses it. So to do it, I believe Python doesn't actually have an array, but this is an array in most programming languages. But they call it a list, so you can store numbers in here like this, separated with commas or strings. Like this. So we can have, we'll go over all that stuff later, lists, tuples, and all that, dictionaries and all that. So here we'll have, we'll say for, we need a name. So it's similar to like a for each loop in Java, so we'll have, if you know that, we'll say for num. So we're naming it num, our variable num, which is going to be the variable that pretty much points to the sequence, depending on each index or iteration. So then here we'll have, so for num in, here we'll have a list, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 separated with commas. Shift semicolon, remember at the end of a loop you're going to have to put a shift semicolon. I think can we do this? Might not like that. So let's just try it without first. So here we'll say for num in, then we're gonna have to indent, and we'll say print num. So what's happening here is each time, so in a loop they have these things called iterations. So each time the loop's gonna start here. So once we get here and we go back to here, so we say for num in 1. So 1 is index 0. Just remember this. Everything in coding indexes, they start at index 0. A string, for example, p here. Let's say our string here is I. This is our string here. Index 0 is going to be I. Index 2 is going to be a space. Index 3 is W. So it works like that. Same thing applies to numbers, to lists, arrays. So here index 0 is 1. Index 1 is 2. Index 2 is 3, index 3 is 4, index 4 is 5. So a list goes from 0 to, so if we say we have 5 iterations, then so basically this loop's going to iterate from 0. It's going to iterate 5 times 0 to 4. So it's going to count 0, 1. So it's going to go 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. That's 5 numbers, because 0 is adding a number. So on the first iteration, we'll say it's the 0th iteration. So on the 0th iteration, num is equal to 1. Right? So on the 0th iteration, so for num in this list, print num. So when we say print num, oh, whoops, sorry. There's comments done in Python with the number sign. Almost every other language is a double slash. Okay, so basically it's going to say for num in this list. Then it's going to jump down into this line, because It's the first indented line in the loop. So print num. Well, in this case, in the 0th iteration, we said num is equal to 1, so that's the first iteration. Now, we went over what happens at the end of an iteration. The loop loops back to the top to check the condition again. Now it's going to say for num in this list, print num. Well, in this case, after the first, it's a little confusing, this concept, but for the second iteration, num is going to equal to 2. So for the, now it's going to add 1. So each time you iterate, it adds 1. So it goes plus plus, or Python doesn't have a plus plus, so plus plus means plus 1. So it's going to be, every time the iteration is going to add 1 to itself. So this time it's going to be first iteration, num is equal to now 2. Because we had, well, you could say it's the first iteration or second iteration, but we started with the 0th iteration just to make it easier. Hopefully that makes sense. I didn't confuse anyone. So we started the iterations at 0, so I called it the 0th iteration. But we could have called it the first iteration, so technically it'd be the second iteration, if you know what I mean. So on the second iteration, which is now really the first iteration, we have num points at 2. It's going to loop down here. So it's going to, the code execution is going to go here. It's going to print 2, then loop back up here to check the condition, right? Follow the cursor back up here to check the condition for num in this list. Now on the second iteration, which is really, because since we started at 0, it's now 3. So hopefully that makes sense. Maybe I'll start at the first iteration. You guys will see what's going to happen. So we'll start the debugger. So we're going to print this line here, print the statement, then here for num in this list. So I'm going to hit enter, I'm going to step in. So you can see num is 1 in this case. It's going to print num. Under console, you can see we printed the num 1. I can't, didn't, oh, there you go. That I can make that bigger now. So printed 1, we'll go back to, I'll click the debugger. So now I'll step in. You can see num is now 2, it'll print num, loop back up, step in. Num is now 3, print num, step in. Num is now 4, print num, step in. Num is now 5, print num. And once we're done that, once we've iterated through the whole list, we step in, the loop's finished. The code and the loop are both finished. So hopefully that makes sense. So I will continue on to the next code. So I'll do another simple example. So we'll display the odd numbers 1 through 9. So there's going to be a kind of a lot of concepts for the for loop, so we'll try to go over all of them. It's harder than the while loop. It's a little bit harder. So here we'll have, actually we can keep that. I will display the numbers 1 through 9. We will say I'll display the odd numbers 1 through 9. So now we'll say for num in 1, 3, 5, 7, 9. So for num in 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, we'll print num. Same idea here. We're not going to debug this. We'll just print it out. So if we just click run here, it's going to print. I will display the odd numbers 1 through 9 for num in this list or array. Basically this list, I think in Python they call it a list, so then we'll print. It's really an array. Anything in these blocks are an array. But in Python they term it a list. So you have to put these special square brackets around the list that you want to keep or store. It's a data structure, so a list is a data structure, so you can store data inside. So it printed out the list here for each iteration. So this loop only contains these. This loop is only one line. We can also perhaps print a new line and try that. Comma. No. So we can print a new line with, actually we're doing the same thing here. We can print to maybe, let's see what happens. I think it should print a space in between them. Yeah, see, we have everything here spaced out now with one space. We can maybe put a tab here as well. So it space them out like that. You guys get the idea. So we'll move on to the next, probably a harder example now. Nothing too hard though. Actually, no, sorry, not this one. So we'll use the for loop to print strings. So we'll do a string example here first. So here we'll say so we'll have here for name in, so naming our variable to point to each iteration name. We're gonna name it name. For name in our list, we could just have like Tom, Betty. There's say we have a dog or a cat or something. Whiskers. So don't forget our shift semicolon. So we have for name in these set of strings, which are 3 strings. Tom, Betty, and Whiskers, which is our list of strings. Then we'll say print. We can actually call this we'll call it name or str, whatever you want. I will print name here. There you go. Same idea. Excuse me. So we have the same idea here. Instead of printing numbers, we printed strings. So it works the exact same way. Just remember to add the quotations and the comma. Of course, you can always use single quotations if you want. Generally, for strings across all programming languages, they use double quotations. And for characters, which Python doesn't have, which is just one single character, you can use just one single quote. So we'll go with the next example here. So we're going to go over the concept here of a range. So a range goes to basically it goes to the range minus 1. So it's kind of it's a concept that's used in programming. If you go like if you have a for loop, in another programming language that goes like for I equals to 0, I is less than 4, then it's just going to iterate 0, 1, 2, 3. But if you go less than or equal to, it's going to go 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So in this case, a range is basically means less than. So I'll show you guys what that means. You probably have no idea what I just said if you're just learning code. So I'll explain it with this example here. So we have let's say we have for x in, we can call the range function. You can say, so there's a built-in function named range that's in the Python built-in functions. So we'll say for x in range 5, don't forget the shift semicolon, print x here. So as you can see here, it has printed 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. It printed 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So for x in range 5, so it printed the range minus 1. So on the first iteration, it printed 0. For the second iteration, it printed 1. Third iteration, 2. Fourth iteration, 3. Fifth iteration, 4. So if you just specify one range, it's going to always start at 0. So we'll show how to change that here in a sec. So we can also do this for x in range 5. We can print a string here. We can print hello world. So it'll print it again 5 times, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, starting at 0, ending at 4. So we can say we want to print in the range of 5 indexes, index 0 to 4. So hopefully that makes sense. So we'll go over the next example here. The next example. Actually, there's probably a little bit more, few things we can do with this here. So basically, in the range function, you can also change it to do different things here. So we can say, so just say for num in range, we'll change that in a sec. We'll print num here. So we'll say for num in range, we can specify 2 parameters here. So a parameter is something you put in a function. So this is a range. This is a function because there's parentheses at the end of it. Like for example, the print is a function because when you call print, it's like this, right? And inside these parentheses, we put parameters. So in this case, print is just taking one parameter, and this range function here is taking 2 parameters. You specify parameters, multiple parameters between commas. So in this case, we have 2 parameters here. So the range, I'm not sure what they call it in Python, but basically it means it's an overloaded function. That means a function can take either 1 parameter, 2 parameters, 3 parameters, and so on. So here we can say, okay, well, it takes 2 parameters. The first parameter is going to be the starting range, and the second parameter is going to be range minus 1. As we said, the index minus 1, so 5 minus 1. So if we print num here, we're just going to get 1, 2, 3, 4, because on the first iteration, it's going to print, on the 0th or first iteration, it's going to print 1 because it has to start at 1. Second iteration, it's going to print 2. Third iteration, it's going to print 3. And fourth iteration, it's going to print 4. Since the range has to be less than 5, it can't go any more. Thus, in this case, the loop had to stop. It had to terminate because it can't print out 5 because it has to be the range minus 1. In this case, the range is 5 or the index, so index minus 1, which is 4. So iterate 0 to 4, but in this case we started at 1, so it only printed 4 values. So hopefully that makes sense. There's another thing we can do with the range function. I think we can we can do something else here. We could input 3 parameters, so we can say for range starting at 1, index is 10 minus 1, and we want to increment each time by 2. So I printed 1, 3, 5, 7, 9. So we started at 1. So on the first iteration, actually maybe I'll debug this time. So I'll click the debug icon in the top right corner. I'll set a breakpoint there, and then I'll click the button, the debug button. So here I'll step in. So we have num points to 1. And since we're incrementing by 2 to 10 minus 1, then so 1 plus 2 is going to print 3. Right? Sorry, no. So, sorry, it's going to start by 1 and increment by 2, so it's going to restart it at 1 here. Sorry for the confusion, so we're going to print 1 first. Then now, num's going to become 3 because it adds 2. Then it's going to be 3. So it starts at 1 first. It doesn't add any numbers to the first increment. Just remember that. On the second increment, it's going to add 2. So 1 plus 2, print 3. So now on the third iteration, it's going to add 2 to 3. If I step in, execution is going to stop here. It's going to wait to be executed, the next line. If I print it, it's going to print 5 because 2 plus 3 is 5. Now it's going to loop back up to the top. So it's going to say, okay, for num in range, this range. Now we're at 5. We're going to add 2 to 5. Then print num, which is going to print 7. Then so first iteration, second iteration, third iteration, fourth iteration. On the 5th iteration, we're going to step in. It's going to add 2 to 7. Then if we print, num is now 9. It's now going to loop back up to the condition for num in range 1, 10, 2. In this case, now num is 9. And remember, the loop has to be range of 10 minus 1. So once we get to 9, if we add 2, this condition becomes false. Therefore, this is the last iteration. The loop's going to terminate, the code's going to terminate, the program ends. So hopefully that makes sense. Once you grasp the concept, you'll get it. What else we have here? So yeah, so now we can talk about a target variable. The purpose of a target variable is to reference each item in a sequence of items as the loop iterates. Okay, so this is the target variable here, num, I believe. Just different terms, I guess, Python terms. So here you can say this can be, so this program uses a loop to display a table of numbers showing the numbers 1 through 10. So it's basically, we're going to show how we can point a variable to num here. That's all that's going to happen. So we can use that num variable, which is a target variable in Python. We can use it for different things. So I'll show you how we can use it. So here we'll say print so we'll have string number here, then a tab, then square. Remember that T is part of an escape sequence, so we'll just space it out here. Or an escape character. Then we'll have some formatting here. We could just print some symbols to space it out. Then we'll have here for a number in range 1 through 10, which is going to be 1, 11. Which is really 1 through 10. Then we'll say here square points to number times 2. Nope, to the exponent of 2. And we're here, we'll say print number tab. Oops, no, I messed it up. Sorry. Number a tab, comma, pass in the square variable here. Alright, so that's the code here. So if we just run it just to show what happens, what happened here. Did I spell something wrong? For number in range. Oh, sorry, I think I put quotations here. It doesn't need quotations. So we'll just save it. I'll hit Control S and then rerun it. So here we can say, as you can see, we have number. Am I missing something here? Yep, this should be like this. Not like that. Comma. There we go. So here for this print statement, we pass in a variable first, not a string or anything. Then we pass in a string. Then we pass in another variable. So you can do that. You can separate them with commas. So here we have number. It's supposed to be lined right above, but you guys get the idea. So we have number 1, its square is 1. Number 2, its square is 4. Number 3, its square is 9. So 3 times 3 is 9. 4 times 4 is 16. 5 times 5 is 25. You get the idea all the way to 100. So see what we did here? We used the number variable in the loop, and then we created a new variable to point to that variable here, and we used that to create a calculation in this case, and we printed the number. If we could have used the number to get some values or something like that as well, a string or whatever. So there you go. So that might just be it here. Whoops. How much time? 28 minutes. Kind of getting long here. But it might be. We might just do one. Let's see how long this code is. Or what kind of code is it? Okay, so we have. I think this is good. We've gone over all the concepts for now. In the next video, we'll let the user control the loop iterations. So I think we'll just end it here. We may do a for loop part 2. So if you guys like the video, you can give me a thumbs up, and you can subscribe to the channel if you'd like for more programming videos or investing videos. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Take care.